Hey everybody, Uncle Josh here. I want to be really clear with everybody. I know I get a lot of messages about, hey, you need to upload more, and I do work a full-time job, and I'm bringing my radio show back. So hopefully you guys will check that out on Sunday. Go to theedgeoftheunknown.com. That is the name of my paranormal call-in radio show. We're going to be talking about witchcraft and sorcery, so hopefully you will dig that. It is a live broadcast from 8 to 10 Eastern Time, so there'll be call-ins and a live chat room, so if you want to interact with me and my guest, that would be a lot of fun. You can also email any questions or comments you have about that show to theedgeoftheunknown@gmail.com. Don't be fooled. I go by Mark Henry. That is the name that I've been using since 2010, and there's a story behind that maybe I'll get into sometime. But anyway, so what I'm going to be doing is long-form volumes interspersed with shorter stuff. So I know I've been doing that the past few weeks. It seems to be working out. And with that, I'm going to shut up and get into some scary convenience store stories. I hope that you guys will dig these. And again, Volume 17 of Uncle Josh's Scary Stories coming up next week. Sit back and enjoy. Hell Night in a Convenience Store by Shelley Y. I am a 32-year-old female, and this took place 10 years ago when I was just out of college. All through school, I worked at a convenience store/gas station, kept a job while I was trying to find work as a school teacher. It was part of a chain of stores that are now 7-Elevens, and was located in a rural part of the state. In fact, it was the only store of its kind between a larger city and the middle of nowhere, so lots of people stopped in with boats and RVs on their way to a campground about 25 miles away. At that time, we only stayed open until midnight, but my boss always made sure there were at least 2 people working every night. A lot of people would get really pissed off when we were inside cleaning up after we closed because they wanted beer or gas or whatever, and because they could still see us there, and they thought we should still be open. Sorry, not the case. Most of the time, they just peeled out of the parking lot after swearing at us or kicking the door, etc. One summer night, my coworker, I'll call him Jim, asked me for a favor. He told me he needed to leave early, but didn't want our boss to know, so could I punch him out when I did my time card? He said he had to pick up his girlfriend at the train station in the city and didn't want her waiting around that late at night. I figured, no big deal, but then he left like an hour earlier, and that kind of made me mad. I thought early meant like 15 minutes or so. It's not that I was scared to be alone there at night. It was just that it meant there was no way I was going to get everything taken care of and be able to leave right after midnight. Oh well. Around 11:30, the store got the normal rush of people coming to get snacks and drinks, as most of them were regulars and knew we closed at midnight. I managed to get most of the things I needed to get done, and was looking forward to getting home on time and having a beer or two with my roommate and some friends. So, just after midnight, I locked the doors and started to cash out the registers to put the money in a safe in the manager's office. When I came back out into the store to dim the lights, I noticed a truck had pulled up to one of the pumps. A short, balding guy got out and started to get gas, but the pumps automatically shut down at midnight, and I had no way of turning them back on. I could see him getting angry, and he dropped the pump and made his way to the store. I was now behind the counter and getting things straight there, and heard him knock on the front glass door. I didn't even look up, but I told him that we were closed. And this made him very angry, and he started shouting that if he couldn't get gas, could he at least get a pack of cigarettes. I shook my head and let him know that the registers were also closed, which was not entirely true, but I still couldn't help him. Sorry, I said. There's an all-night place in the city that can help you, though. He looked away, but then banged on the door and said it was just a pack of cigarettes, and could I throw them out the door to him, and he'd leave money on the ground if I was worried about a robbery. What? Who said anything about a robbery? I again told him I couldn't help him, and this is when he got really mad. Just give me a pack of Camels. I don't have time for this shit, he said. I just gave him a shrug as if to say, what do you want me to do? I grabbed a broom and started sweeping up behind the register. You're a real fucking cunt, you know that? I just want a pack of smokes. Well, I can't help you. I'm sorry, but calling me names certainly isn't going to help you get what you want, I replied. Guy goes nuts, starts kicking and punching the door. He gets in a good kick, and the bottom piece of glass spiderwebs, and he yells out in pain. I tell him I'm calling the cops and my boss, and he proceeds to limp towards his truck, and then stops to call me some more names. He then picks up a metal garbage can and throws it at the door. I ran back to the office and called the police. And they told me to stay inside the store and they will send someone out, but it's going to be at least 20 minutes. And I stay on the line with them as I can hear the guy out front still screaming, "Get back out here, you stupid bitch! Open this fucking door!" Then I call my boss on my cell phone, but he doesn't answer. It's likely he's out at a bar or something, so I just leave a frantic message about the guy and the cops. And then I hear the glass door breaking again, and I peek out to see the guy is pushing open the shattered glass portion of the door and trying to crawl in, getting his hands cut and bloody. I screamed, slammed the office door shut and locked it, and screamed to the police that he's getting into the store. Then it's quiet for a bit. I think maybe he gave up and was still outside, but I was wrong. There was a sudden pounding on the door and the guy yelling, "I got my smokes, you dumb bitch! What are you gonna do now, asshole?" Then he starts laughing and keeps pounding on the door. A few minutes later, I hear what I think is him leaving and crack the door just enough to see him get into his truck with a 6-pack of beer. He starts the truck and heads out of the lot towards the boonies and not the city. I walk out to see the office door is covered in bloody pink smears from his pounding, and there's blood on the counter and all around the door. The police show up eventually, and I tell them what happened, and then they call my boss and get a hold of him. He was asleep and says he'll be right out. When he gets there, he's pissed, but not at me, just the damage to the door. I told the police the color of the truck, it was red, and what direction it went. They see that things here are under control as my boss starts to put a piece of plywood up over the door for the time being. Then he asks me where Jim was in all of this. I don't want to lie, but I still haven't punched out and can't claim that he did either. My boss was really pissed, but not at me. He did say never promise to punch someone out again, and then asked if I was going to be okay to get home. He was going to stay until the police came back. I was alright, a little shaken up, but I get out to my little Toyota and start my way home. It's only a 15-minute ride, but about halfway there, I see lights from behind me coming up very fast. And then I see it's a red truck, and it's right on my bumper. I mean, it actually hits my car, my head bobbed forward. The truck slows down, but then comes right back and rams me again. Then it pulls alongside me and forces me off the road onto this little turnaround on the side. I think I can dart ahead, but it gets in front of me and there's nowhere to go. Guess who it is? Out jumps Crazy Guy, who limps over to my window and starts smashing his hands on the window, screaming, "I'm gonna fix you, you little bitch! It's party time!" I am beyond terrified as his hands are still bleeding and he's leaving those pink smears on the glass. I'm shrieking and I crawl over the passenger side and pop the door open and basically fall out of the car. I got up and just started running. He's yelling at me, but he can't keep up because of his hurt foot. "Get back here, you bitch! I'm not through by a long shot!" I am now running up the highway, realizing that my phone is still in the car, and I am in the middle of fucking nowhere. I hear his truck start moving, but thank God lights appeared in front of me. It was the police coming back from their search. They see me, and this guy can't turn around in time for them to get right up on him. They haul him out of his truck and handcuff him. The entire time he was screaming at me still. It turns out he was high on PCP and didn't feel a thing in his body. One officer put the guy in the car and the other walked me back to mine. The bumper was all mashed up and they made arrangements for a tow truck and another car pulled up to take me home. I gave them my statement about what had happened, and it wasn't for another 8 months or so before I had to show up in court to testify against the guy. He's now in jail somewhere, and that's good. I stayed working at that store for another few months before I got a long-term substitute position and left the area. That was definitely the most scared I've ever been. I shudder to think what he would have done to me if he had caught me. Crazy woman at my gas station. This isn't super scary, but it was one of the most messed up nights I ever worked. Graveyard shift at a gas station. Full serve gets shut down after 11 p.m. because there's only one clerk on site. Traffic cones block the full serve pumps, and there's signs all over to inform customers. Around midnight, a van pulls up with California plates and peace and love signs in the windows. This woman gets out, moves the traffic cones, and pulls up to full serve. I use the intercom to tell her that she will have to use self-service if she wants gas. No answer. I go to the door and try to wave her over or call out to her. Can't see any sign of her. I shrug and go back inside. I'm not allowed to leave the store unattended, so there's not much I can do. 10 minutes later, a woman gets out of the van and comes in. "I've been waiting for service for over an hour," she says. I decided not to argue about the time elapsed and just say, "I'm very sorry, ma'am, but we don't offer full serve after 11. Perhaps you noticed the traffic cones and signs to that effect?" "You expect me to pump my own gas?" she says. "Again, I'm sorry. I'd be happy to help you, but I can't leave the store unattended, and I appreciate your understanding." She snorts and digs out a 20 of her purse and tosses it on the counter. She goes out, moves the van to self-serve, pumps the gas, and then comes back. "May I use your restroom, please?" she asks. "Absolutely, right back there," I say, relieved. She goes to the restroom, and she's in there for about 15 minutes. And I start to worry. Finally, she comes out into the counter. "I know all about you," she says. You're the one that brought the Black Plague. You brought it all the time, forever. It was always you. You caused all those deaths, all that suffering. Do you like hearing the babies wail and scream? I bet you loved it. All the demons love it. That's you. You're a demon. You are evil. I can tell. And I'll tell you something else. You skunk me up, I'll skunk you back." I stared at her, retreating back speechless. She got in her van and drove away. Skunk her up? What the fuck does that even mean? Because I didn't pump her gas? Weird. I went back to fronting shelves for about 30 seconds before I thought, perhaps I should check the bathroom. I walked back and pushed open the door. Shit. Shit everywhere. On the walls, the floor, the mirror, the sink. All over the toilet lid and the tank. Shit on the door, clearly smeared by hand. And oh, the stench. As I turned to get my cleaning supplies, I muttered under my breath, "Yep, you skunked me back all right, you crazy bitch." Car Haunted My Convenience Store by Jumbo Jimbo. When I was 18, my friend Dave and I got jobs at a convenience store at the edge of our town of Altus, Oklahoma. It was a full-service stop right in town, food, gas, and groceries. There was a car lot and a pawn shop across the street, and that's important for this story. We both started working on the 7 to 3 shift in the mornings, but after a while, 2 people on the graveyard shift just up and quit, and our manager asked us if we would like to take that over until he found replacements. We thought, why not? Less customers, more time to screw around. Outside of the weekends, it was a very quiet shift with maybe 10 to 20 customers all night long, mostly drunks looking for beer we couldn't sell them, but that's about it. Dave was looking to buy a car and thought he would look at one of the ones across the street. We got to know a lot of the guys who worked there as well as the owner because they came over for food and fuel all the time. He didn't end up buying anything there, but one of the guys who worked in the garage told him about a car on his street that was for sale. It was a 1999 Buick LeSabre with low miles, and it was owned by an older couple that had passed away. Not a sex machine, but it was a nice car. This was 2010, and a lot of our friends had cooler cars, but Dave loved it. I mean, it was wheels. After a couple of weeks, Dave shows up late to work one night, and I asked him where he was. The frickin' car wouldn't start. I pointed out in the lot and said, "Well, you got it running, obviously." He nodded and said he was going to have his buddy across the way look at it later. He did, and the guy couldn't find anything wrong. Everything was tip-top. It was a head-scratcher. The next night, the same thing happened. Car wouldn't start, but would fire right up after midnight. He explained it to our manager, who laughed and said he should just be riding his bike to work like me and he wouldn't have to worry about being late. This happened on and off for the next month or so. Dave finally bought a new battery. That seemed to solve the issue. But then things got weirder. Around 2:15 one morning, the front of the store was flooded with light. Dave's Buick's high beams had turned on while he was inside working alongside me. Dave thought it was someone fooling around, but when he went out to check, there was no one in the parking lot, and the doors were all locked. The next night, the lights came on again at the same time, but this time started flashing on and off. We're not supposed to leave the store unattended, but I went out the back and around the side of the building while Dave went out through the front doors to see if we could catch someone. No one was out there. Once again, he takes it to the garage friend, and he still can't find anything. This kept happening, and it was starting to freak us out that it happened at the same time every night. But there was nothing he could do about it except remove the fuse before coming into work. And that's when the phone started to ring at 2:15 every day. No one was ever there, just the sound of like a soft breeze or something. Every night, the same thing. Then stuff started happening in the store, too. We would stock the shelves with something only to turn around a minute later and find all the stuff back in boxes. This would happen so quickly, and there was never a sound. We told our manager, and he laughed and said we were seeing things, and this stuff never happened on the nights we weren't there. It went on like this for a while, and then the climax happened. The front door started opening on its own at 2:15, and after a few seconds, the door to the back room would open. This was a door that had a big handle that required effort to open and push in. Naturally, we checked things out, but there was no one ever there. One morning we were talking about it as we were getting ready to call it a night, or morning for that matter, when the guy who owned the pawn shop overheard us talking about the car and all the other weird crap that was going on. He asked if David had the car looked at, and then asked where he got it. Dave told him, and let's call this other guy Tony, said, "Older couple over on Blank Street?" Dave said yeah, and this was crazy that he knew. Tony said he was friends with the grandson of the people who owned the Buick and drove the car for a little while until weird things started happening, and just like what was happening to Dave. Turns out the old woman had died in her sleep just before midnight one night, and her husband passed away a few weeks later at, you got it, 2:15 in the morning. Not too long after that, we both quit working at that store. Dave got a better job and my family moved to California. I still talk to the manager, but he told me that since we left, no one has reported anything strange happening, and he still makes fun of me about it. If the old folks were trying to get our attention, it worked. Bookend of the story? Dave kept that car for another 6 years until it finally died, pardon the pun, on a December morning at 2:15 a.m. when he was driving home from a night spot. It's pretty creepy. Richard. Hey gang, you may have heard this one before. I try not to share the same stories that a lot of the other guys do, but I've always liked this one, and I hope you like it too. If you've heard it, you can skip it, or you can enjoy it one more time. If you haven't heard it, it's a little creepy, but it's kind of funny too, so hopefully you will enjoy this. If you ever want to hear some of the most fucked up stories you'll ever find in your life, just ask the regular graveyard guy at your local all-night convenience store for some of the shit he's seen. And dear God, man, bring some popcorn. In my life, I've been the graveyard guy for not one, not two, but 3 different 7-Eleven locations, and I'm going to bring the bulk of my horror stories to you lovely people. This one is about a gentleman named Richard. Working the graveyard shift, I was the lone employee from just after 10 at night to just before 6 in the morning. Not only that, but the next nearest all-night anything was another convenience store over 2 miles away, and that from my store you could just barely see the light pollution of their neon. This setup alone made for many interesting happenings, and tonight was a Saturday night going into Sunday morning, just after 4 a.m., when a middle-aged, give-or-take male with thick glasses and week-old stubble walked in. He wasn't unpleasant at first. He made small talk as he walked through the store, sometimes to me, sometimes to no one in particular. He mentioned things about the weather. He asked about the hot dogs and taquitos on the grill. It was what it was at first. But then the comments started slipping in, minor vulgarities and weird things. After walking about the store for a good 20 minutes, he comes up the register to check out, without anything to actually buy. I asked if he needed help with anything, and he asked me what I knew about the Antichrist. All right. I know enough, I guess. I was raised Catholic, so I knew quite a bit on the subject. So he stares at me. Eyes wide, mouth pursed. I wasn't sure if he was about to bite me on the face or kiss me on the lips. Not being able to tell the difference made me uneasy. He says, "I should get a hot dog." Me. All right, which one? One of the big ones. I want to enjoy it. There'll be no more hot dogs once the Antichrist comes. It sounded like a ridiculous statement. Okay, it is a ridiculous statement, but when said with genuine menace, it becomes a thinly veiled harbinger of doom. I did my best to ignore it, got his bread and hot dog and handed it over to him. He walked around to the condiment bar and he continued. "You have onions." "Uh-huh." "I love onions." Longer than necessary pause. "Uh-huh. Many people do." "They better enjoy them." There'll be no more onions once the Antichrist comes. There's really no way to respond to this, so I try to go back to my work. But even as I walk, as I stock cigarettes and start my nightly count, I can feel him watching every move that I make. He comes up to the register with his hot dog, pays, and I hope to hell we're done here. Thanks for coming. You have a good night. I turn my back. Can I eat this here? Probably not a good idea. The manager comes in at about 5:30, and he doesn't like it if anyone's hanging out here. Stuff to do, you know? I'm not worried about him. The fucked part about this is that I was actually partially lying. The manager, James, my boss and a really awesome guy, did arrive somewhere between 5:30 and 5:45 every morning, Monday through Friday, but he avoided the place like the plague on the weekends. I was trying to sell something that I knew wouldn't fly if this guy actually stuck around long enough for no one to show up. And now he's telling me he wasn't concerned about someone else showing up. Saturday nights are a busy time for convenience stores, but after about 3:30 they become a ghost town, and it was just me and this guy for one extended, uninterrupted, fucked up conversation after another. I'd try to walk to stock cups, lids, and straws, and he'd pop up right behind me. There'll be no straws and cups when the Antichrist comes. I'd arrange the beer and the coffee. There'll be no more coffee when the Antichrist comes. I realize it sounds like a joke, but his panicked eyes and horribly hinting smile made it clear. He was dead serious in everything he said. 5 o'clock rolls around. Well, you should probably get going. Don't want that boss man getting mad at me now. He won't get mad at you. It's just he doesn't like people hanging out. We're just talking about the Bible. He said this so sickly sweet that it made my stomach churn. Yeah, but still, he's going to be here soon. I'm not worried about him. I need milk. Okay. I point to the display case. He walks back, grabs a thing of milk slowly and robotically, and inspects the carton all the way back to the register. I love milk. Oh, really? Yep, but there'll be no more milk when the Antichrist comes. The devil won't allow that. It's holy sustenance. All right. At this point, I'm sizing this guy up. He's about 5'9", and I'm about 6'4", and I've got at least 100 pounds on him, so if things go south, I think I can get a good few head knocks in before he pulls out my liver and puts it on his head. 5'10". Should probably get going. Jesus loves all of his children. 5'15". Boss is going to be here soon. I'm not worried about him. 5'20". Is there anything else you need? The devil is real, Scott. This is where two things happen that if I hadn't lived through it, I would have called bullshit to the person telling the story. At 5:30, for the first time in almost 2 years that I'd worked there, my boss James came walking into the store on a Sunday morning. He fucking managed to unbluff my bluff with this guy. Secondly, and this is the jaw-droppingly hilarious part for me, James had been to the beach on Saturday. James had fallen asleep at the beach on Saturday. James had shaved his head fresh before going to the beach on Saturday. In other words, just as I told him he would, my boss came walking in at 5:30 on the dot, with a completely shaved head, a long dark goatee, and bright red skin. I said to James, "What the fuck are you doing here?" "I honestly have no idea." "Who's this?" I didn't answer. I looked at James, I looked at the guy, and back at James. He looked at the guy, said, "Let's go outside and chat, my friend." Less than 10 minutes later, the guy was walking off, and James came back into the store. What the fuck was that all about? Oh, Richard? Well, he started telling me about Jesus, and I started telling him about witchcraft. He said the Antichrist was coming. I said I was the Antichrist. I think that overloaded his circuits, and he left. I love James. I wish this is where the story ended, but about 3 months later, I'm outside of my store and smoking a cigarette with a few regular customers of mine, just chatting away. Somewhere in the distance I hear, "Jesus, Lord, God, help me!" I perk up, but the people I'm with don't seem to notice. "Jesus, please, I know that you can help me!" The voice is closer now, and I actually say, "Oh, please don't be Richard." "Jesus, Jesus Christ, come down from heaven and save me!" "Please, oh please, don't be Richard." Sure enough, barreling around the side of the building and heading into my direction is a panicked, screaming, sweaty Richard, covered in his own blood. The people I'm with ask the appropriate question of, Dude, is he fucking covered in blood? I, on the other hand, had only one thought in my mind, and I repeated it over and over again. Don't go in the store. 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 Don't go in the... God damn it! Richard went into the store. I crushed my cigarette out and run in. In the few seconds he's been in there, I now have blood all over the doors, the floors, the rugs, and the countertops. Jesus Christ, please fucking come down and save me! I grab him some towels and toss them in his general direction, trying to get an idea of the nature of his wounds while dialing 911. Now, I can't be sure because I can't say as I've seen it before, but it looks quite possibly like he tried to crucify himself. 911, what's your emergency? I have a gentleman in my store who is injured, screaming profanities, yelling about Jesus, and is covered in his own blood. What? His name is Richard, and I don't know how badly he's hurt, but yeah. I hear the dispatcher typing. She asks the store name, the address, etc. All right, and you said that he's screaming profanities? Richard, who can't hear her, screams out, "Fuck!" Did you happen to hear that? Yes, I did. And you said he's talking about Jesus? Richard, who obviously still can't hear, "Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior! Please fucking come and save me!" Did you happen to hear that? Yes, I did. And then Richard, in all his glory, does the one thing that makes any convenience store clerk go aggro, especially one on graveyard shift. I turn away from him to give the operator the store location, and when I turn back around, Richard is now behind me, behind the register. I drop the phone. Richard, I don't give a fuck what's wrong with you. If you don't get out from behind my fucking counter, I will hang up with 911 and let you bleed to death right here in the fucking store. The confrontation didn't last long. Before he could respond, there were 4 officers with me. I thanked the 911 operator, hung up, and left the area. Richard was handcuffed inside of an ambulance, and even the officers said it appeared he tried to do something harmful with religious significance. I thanked them for coming so quickly, and we laughed about the strangeness of it all. My Hometown Horror by Anonymous. When I was younger, I worked at my grandfather's store in the country. It was a little place in a small town in the middle of Pennsylvania. And this was in the 60s, and the place is long since gone. Anyway, it was your typical grocery store in a little town with a little porch out front where people would sit and talk while the store was open. Most of the people in town were really nice folks, but there was this one family that always seemed to be causing trouble. The males were in and out of jail all the time, the kids were troublemakers, and the mothers, well, let's just say they got around. I'll call them the Finleys, and myself John. There were 3 brothers that lived in the same ratty-ass house with their wives and small boys and girls that were all around 8 or 10 years old. I remember I had to stop a few of them from trying to steal from the store, and they ran home crying. One of the mothers, let's call her Cindy, came back to the store screaming about me hitting her kids and other crap that didn't happen. I calmly told her what had really happened, and suddenly she started being real nice. Like a light switch. She went from crazy angry to sweetheart. She starts talking to me, and I'm just doing the be nice to the customer thing. "So, what time do you get off work?" she asked. I work here until we close at 11. Want to get together afterwards? We can talk. Now, like I said, even though I was only 19, I knew this woman had a reputation around town, and I wasn't going to be counted in the number of guys she was with. Add to the fact that her husband was a maniac and so were his brothers. No thanks. I do recall he was in jail at the time this happened. "I have to get home and help my dad with some work on the house," I said, knowing she wasn't going to buy that. "You sure about that? You're kind of cute, and I could use some conversation tonight." "No, I'm going to have to pass, but thank you much for the offer," I said. She frowns and gets a little pissy before leaving, slams open the door, and out she goes. A couple of days later, she's back to buy some things in the store and asks if I can help her to get something off a top shelf. I leave the register and head back to where she was, and she points to a kid's fishing pole set. If you're my age, you'll remember those Zebco setups they made for us kids. I smile and reach up for it and feel her hand slide up my shirt, and she said in a very suggestive voice, "My, you're a strapping young man, aren't you?" I'll bet all the girls at your school want to be your girlfriend." I backed away from her, and she smiled. "I have a girlfriend, and I've already graduated," I blurted out. The girlfriend part was a lie, but what was I supposed to say? "Really? I'll bet you know how to please her too, don't you, Johnny?" Two things. One, I'm not sure how she knew my name, but then again, it is a small town, so I guess it wasn't really a secret. Two, no one has ever called me Johnny. It was kind of creepy. I have to say, this woman wasn't a model or anything, but she wasn't a hag either. Still, I had no intentions of messing around with her, which is what she was going for. Can I get you anything else?" "Uh-huh," she says, walking closer to me. "I think you can get together with me tonight, Johnny boy, and give me something else." I'll always remember that line. I'm a guy, but the way she said it was so slutty that I knew it wasn't a good thing. I turn and head back to the register, and she slaps my butt. I just shake my head and get behind the counter. She puts her stuff on the counter along with the fishing pole. I keep my head down and cash her out. She picks my chin up and says, "I'm fishing for you, Johnny, and you know, I'm going to snag you." I back up and tell her to have a nice day. Thinking back, how corny was that woman? Goofy now, but when it happened, it wasn't at all. It was about another week, and I was leaving the store to go home, and she's sitting on the porch with one of her little monsters in tow, and I just say goodnight. She gets up and basically throws herself at me and plants a big kiss on my lips and tries to stick her tongue in. No way. I push her away and say, "Get off me, lady. What the heck is wrong with you?" She smiles and tries again and grabs my crotch and says, "Come on, Johnny, let's roll in the hay." Right in front of her kids, she says this. Again, I push off and back up on the porch ledge, jump down and hightail it out of there. She's still standing there, at 11 at night, yelling for me to come back. "You can't run from me forever, Johnny boy." I did run all the way home. Again, another week goes by, and I'm happy that I don't see her in the store or anywhere else. But someone else did show up. Her husband. And he wasn't happy. I'll call him Jerry. He was a big guy, about 6'4" and over 200 pounds. I was a skinny little runt at 5'9" and maybe 150. He came blasting into the store one day and started screaming,
"Who the fuck is Johnny?"
I don't like to cuss, but I'm just repeating what happened. I look up from where I'm kneeling, putting some things on shelves, and say, "I'm John, can I help you?" He comes over and kicks me so hard I fall on my back.
"Think you can hump my wife when I'm locked up, you little piece of shit?"
I'm lying on my back, stunned and scared, and I blurt out, "What?" He moves for me again, and I try to scramble backwards, and then my grandfather stepped in holding a broom. "Hey," he yells, "don't you lay a finger on this boy. Now you get on out of this store." Jerry looks at him and looks at me and points a finger at me.
"You're dead meat, you little asshole. Don't think you're getting away with anything."
Then he tells my grandfather to fuck off and leaves the store. My grandfather leans down and helps me up, asking if I'm okay and what that was all about. I told him everything, and he said he's going to get my dad to come and get me and that I need to stay away from them. And then he called the police and told them what happened. I guess they went to his house, but he wasn't there, and everyone acted dumb like he wasn't around at all. So my dad gets me, and I didn't work for a few days, and one night the phone rings. As I said, this was in the 60s, so we only had two phones, one in the kitchen and one in my parents' room. I answer it, and there's no one at first, and then I hear Cindy. "Hi, Johnny. I miss you at the store. Still waiting for our conversation time." And then she laughs and hangs up. I tell my parents, and they don't know what to do because she's not really doing anything bad. I just went to bed and tried to brush it off, and the next day my friend Derek came over. We were going to shoot squirrels in the forest on the edge of town. We got our .22s and a sack for the squirrels and headed off. We were out for quite a while, and it was getting to be around dinner time, so we started back to my house, and that's when we heard the voice. It was Jerry.
"Hey, asshole. Time for your whooping."
I turn to see him and lift up my rifle, and he just laughs as I hear another voice off to the side of us. "Now what are you thinking of doing with that, asshole?" It was one of Jerry's brothers. I turn to Derek and say, "Run!" And we do. But we don't get far because another one of his brothers is right where we were running towards. Derek stops and fires a bullet into the air, and they all kind of stop. But one of them has a shotgun and shoots right near our heads, and it blasts up a tree. I try talking to Jerry, telling him that I don't know what he's talking about and that I didn't do anything.
So, my son's a liar, you little shit?
He says, walking towards me. I tell him I swear I didn't do anything. He's right up on us now, and his brothers are right behind us. He pulls out a knife and flicks at me, catching me on the arm with a decent slice, but not anything that needed stitches. Lots of blood, though.
You go anywhere near my wife and I'll cut your balls off. Got it, you fucking punk?
I nodded, trying not to cry, and thinking the only way these guys are going to leave us alone is if I go along. He shoves me real hard, and I fall down, and they all walk away. Derek asks if I'm okay, and tells me that we need to call the cops when we get home. And we did get home and tell my parents, and they were angry, and my dad does call the police. Same thing happens again. They're not around, and the wives play dumb. That night the phone rang, and it was Cindy. Again. Don't worry about Jerry, Johnny. I still want to talk to you. My dad grabbed the phone out of my hand and said, "Who is this?" She just laughed and hung up. The phone rang again, and my dad picked it up, really pissed off. This time it wasn't Cindy. It was Jerry.
If your fucking kid gets anywhere near my wife, I'll kill your entire family.
Now, my dad was an engineer and smaller than me, but he had a hot temper and said back, "Look, buddy, I'm calling the police, and you touch anyone in this family, you're going to be eating your fucking teeth."
Is that right, asshole?
Jerry says.
We'll see about that.
Dad slams the phone down, calls the cops, and the same thing happens for a third time. Later that night, we're getting ready for bed, and a rock comes through our front room window, and someone starts ringing the doorbell. We know who it is, so Dad tells Mom to call the police and goes to get his .223.
Come on out, you fucking babies,
screams Jerry.
I don't hear you talking tough now.
A window breaks in the kitchen in the back. Mom screams, and in comes one of Jerry's brothers. He runs through the house with a knife in his hands and tries to get the phone from my mom, but she's already screamed to the police to get to our house. Jerry is trying to kick down the door, and his brother runs to open it, and I don't know how or why I did this, or where I got the courage to, but I tripped him, and he went flying into the door and landed on his knife, and blood started flowing all over the floor. He yells out, and Jerry goes berserk and breaks through the door. He sees his brother and says,
"What did you do to my brother, you little fucker?"
He takes a step and slips a bit in the blood as his brother is laying there moaning.
"Come here, you bastard. It's time."
Right then, Dad comes down the stairs with the rifle pointed at Jerry and tells him to stop.
"Oh, you gonna shoot me, little man?"
he says, and Dad cycles the rifle. Jerry stops and then backs up and runs out of the house, leaving his brother. A few minutes later, the police show up and find the brother half unconscious and call for an ambulance. While they are talking to us and we're all shaking and really worked up, the phone rings. An officer answered it, and we can hear Jerry yelling all kinds of foul stuff that I won't repeat here. Stuff he was going to do to me, to my mom, and make my dad watch, and we messed with the wrong guy, and so on. Later, the police said we should stay somewhere else that night, so we went to my grandfather's. He lived right behind the store. I tried to sleep, but couldn't, and heard the phone ring and my dad talking to someone. I made out, "They found him. He's in jail." And I breathed a sigh of relief. I was not a smoker, but for some reason I grabbed one of my dad's cigarettes and went outside and lit it up. I walked around to the front of the store thinking I would sit on the porch and ran smack into Cindy, who was standing there. "We can have that conversation now, Johnny." Behind her was Jerry's other brother. I turned and ran back to my grandfather's house and shut the door and ran up the stairs. My dad asked what happened. I told him and he ran outside, but no one was there. That's the last I saw of them, except the little kids who were still troublemakers. Not long after that, I decided to join the army, and pretty soon I was off in Vietnam and didn't think too much about it. I did know that the 3 brothers went to jail, and the one who fell on his knife barely made it, but he went to prison too. When I do look back at it, I saw some scary stuff in the war, but I don't think I was ever as scared as that night. I still get the willies when I think about that family. When my son asked if he could get a part-time job at the local convenience store in our town, I told him no, and found him a job at a car dealer. I hope he never has to go through something like that. Real Life is Scarier Than the Paranormal by Amanda Twisted. I was working in a convenience store, 19 years old, single mom. Luckily, this day I wasn't alone because my manager happened to be working. This guy comes in, walks around, and then went back to pump his gas, and then drove off without paying. I got the tag number and called the police per policy, and didn't expect anything to come from it because that's what always happened. Gas theft just wasn't a priority to the police department. To my surprise, less than an hour later, an officer walks in and asks me to identify the guy, which I did. I really didn't think too much of it, just happy they caught the asshole. I went on about my business, went home, and got on with life. The next day, the manager calls me in the morning and tells me that she saw the guy who I had identified on the news. He was wanted for 2 counts of murder. I guess he had murdered a female jogger for no apparent motive and a convenience store clerk that he had kidnapped after robbing her. I assumed she was mistaken because that just seemed too crazy. Something I did helping catch a murderer just seemed unlikely. Later that day, the officer who was there the day before came by and asked me more questions. When I asked him if it was true, he said yes and thanked me. Without the tag number, they may not have caught him until he had hurt more women. He also told me that the reason the police caught him quickly was the car was stolen. And then the officer told me the scariest part of all. Coming in and walking around the store is exactly the same thing he did before the robbery kidnapping of the second woman he murdered. I will never know exactly why he didn't rob me or worse. I assume it was because my manager was there, and for whatever reason that day she was in, I am very thankful and grateful that she was. Well, gang, I hope everybody enjoyed that. Again, some of them were a little funny, some of them were a little disturbing, but I wanted to have a pretty good mix in there, and I had to do that story that I know some of you have heard about Richard. That is one of my favorites on the internet, so I hope that didn't piss anybody off and that you enjoyed it. Anyway, if you feel so inclined, check out my Patreon page. There's a link for that in the description below, and you can help make this channel go. And again, please check out my live radio call-in show, The Edge of the Unknown. You can hear it at Spreaker.com. theedgeoftheunknown.com. There's a right on the homepage there. You can hit it when it goes live, and you'll be able to hear archives at Spreaker.com and also on YouTube. I'm going to upload everything and then have links at theedgeoftheunknown.com. So I hope everybody is well. Again, Volume 17 right around the corner, and I appreciate everybody listening. I appreciate all the comments, and keep them coming, everybody. And please share this show with your friends. It's a lot of fun to do, and I want to make sure the word gets out there. So, until next time, be wary of things that go bump in the night. Could be anything. Ghost, a monster, or the guy next door.